Welcome to Cash Talk, the podcast where we delve into the depths of finance, business, and life itself. I'm your host, John Cachia, a multi-award-winning wealth advisor with a passion for empowering ambitious Australians to confidently achieve financial freedom. Hey everyone, before we get started, this is a quick reminder that everything in this podcast is of a general nature and nothing has been tailored to your personal circumstances. So please seek personal financial advice before acting on this information. Hello and welcome back to Cash Talk, and today I'm joined by JK. JK, how are you, mate?
Good, mate. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. Just trying to stay warm in this cold Melbourne weather, and I am seeing all of these people in Europe and all overseas, and I am getting the itch, but I think both of us have something planned a little bit later. A few weeks until you leave now?
Yeah, a few weeks.
Cool. Pretty excited?
Yeah, can't wait.
And this is a bit like of a honeymoon for you guys,
Yeah,
isn't it?
correct. Yeah, so the whole kind of idea was go later when kind of the weather's better, but also the crowds have sort of died off a little bit that August, September instead of June, July.
Yep.
And that way too we can kind of plan the wedding and then the honeymoon, not the wedding and the honeymoon at the same time. So it's worked out well.
That's pretty epic. Anywhere really that you're looking forward to the most?
Nothing, sort of obviously looking forward to it all. I do have a hit of tennis planned in France actually. So
Wow.
yeah, I've always wanted to play on a European clay court.
Okay.
So I've teed up with one of the clubs there to have a hit while we're in Nice.
That's
So
awesome.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, awesome. Actually, I'm heading to Nice as well too for a day. So I think you'll be there before me. So enjoy, mate. Enjoy.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
So let's get into it anyway. So today we really want to kind of speak about the difference in life stages along your life when, we're working with different clients. Obviously, JK's at a different stage in where I am, and obviously, there's different clients at different stages. And with those different stages becomes different needs that these people, these clients need, what we need, and what you may need. So we want to kind of go through those as well too. And JK, you obviously see even with your journey, you started investing very, very early, and your kind of needs back then were different. Living with mum and dad. Really, it was just kind of dip your toe in, as they put, isn't it?
Correct, yeah, and a bit of experimenting too, I think is the biggest thing. Like even if we look at my sort of portfolio to what it was when I first started versus to where it is now, and then even how it sort of changed in between, it obviously, as your life evolves, there's some things that you just can't plan for. So it's around then, a lot of it while you're young is just about getting the habits right and making some of those mistakes too.
And we're talking about JK started very early, like myself, and JK, I think you were about 15, 16 16 when you started. And where did you kind of learn, and what were you doing then?
Yeah, so back then it was my so obviously at high school started my part-time job, and I was kind of just look at the money going, everything was going to the bank account. And I'm like, oh, surely this can do something. My old man's he used to sort of trade stocks as well a little bit too, so I sort of saw some of what he was doing, and I was like, oh, maybe I can give this a go, start learning about that, this and that sort of thing. And
when you say learning about this and that, were you going off and like looking on YouTube, reading books? Like, what were you doing?
Yeah, it was mainly reading books about technical analysis, which to be honest now I'm not really a fan of. And it was really that active approach, and it was really around trying to, when we talk about returns in the stock market, we talk about, getting 10% over per annum over a 10-year period. This was looking at trying to get like 50% over like 6 months or something like that. So it was, in hindsight, probably a bit unrealistic, but it was obviously sort of like an important sort of learning curve as well.
Yeah, it would have been, because, it's also really good that you kind of learnt that very young. Like for people that obviously have kids in their teenage years, it's around, learning is a very, very important part, not just in your whole life, but especially at the start. And you would have made a lot of mistakes, and from those mistakes, you grew into who you are now. But I always say around, don't trip over someone else's logs. And JK and me kind of connected when he was about 18. So call that 2 years of doing that stuff until he kind of saw what we do and why we do things, and really our different approach was around not risking. For just risking. Correct. And, when clients are in us telling us that they want particular goals or they want particular outcomes, it's to create certainty of that happening. And so we're not looking at saying to a client, hey, listen, there's a 50-50 chance that you can retire. Like, that's not what they want. They want 100%. or close to as much as possible. So to do that, we need to kind of mitigate as much as the risk as possible. And technical analysis is one style of investing. And so for people that don't know, JK, what does technical analysis entail?
Yeah, good question. So it's essentially really just trying to look at, not really taking into account, what the company does or anything like that. It's
And when you say does, it mean like profits and stuff?
yeah,
like
like profits. What industries are they in?
Yep.
Like, you're not looking at sort of the characteristics of the company at all. You're really just looking at like the price history and the data around the pricing. So, for example, not just the price itself, but things like, for example, you might be looking at like the volatility of that stock. You might be looking at like the trading volumes on particular days and how them changing might impact the future price and that sort of thing.
And you're looking at patterns, aren't you?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really what you're trying to do. Trying to find patterns to predict to a certain degree where the price is going to go, and then betting for that or against it.
So obviously, as a young cohort, and for people that are probably watching this, this is a really infancy we're talking now in regards to your teenage years. But in hindsight, like, you must be still proud that you kind of explored that, though.
Yeah, I was, because, well, one, it probably wouldn't have sort of led me to have the interest that I have to come into this profession. But also, two, like, one is, I guess, learning that it doesn't work was obviously, learning that it doesn't work, then going into, then learning about passive investing and that sort of thing. That's number one. But then also number two, things like, for example, like doing your own tax returns and then having to work out the capital gains and losses and how that gets reported to the ATO and all that sort of stuff. Like, just that learning curve in itself, and then understanding more about the tax system, has obviously just made a massive difference as well.
Yeah. And it's interesting because my journey in regards to like wealth creation and stuff like that was very much from a risk first perspective. And, my entry into the financial advice industry was based on protection of people's assets. And so inevitably my investment journey came on that. Now, really, like, my upbringing was around that kind of scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
So, risk mitigation was very close to me. I just understood that as you build wealth, you want to kind of protect it as much as possible. So, our philosophy was, not only adapted by me, but obviously a lot of the research that I was doing into the likes of Warren Buffett, Benjamin Graham, Jack Bogle, people like this, Howard Marks, in regards to how they approach things, and then and take things from each of them to then apply into what I do for my life. Yeah. And I really found that when I went to university and from people, there was more around the technical analysis. Yeah. There was more around, yes, fundamentals in regards to understanding what businesses were, but really there was a lot of assumptions being made. Yeah. And, one of my mentors, Kevin Roberts, he was talking to me about like making sure that the assumption that you have on your decision, regardless if it's in leadership or if it's in investing, is the last thing that happens, not the first thing. So if you find yourself assuming from the start, which technical analysis falls yourself into, even active management, I assume that this is going to happen. There's a lot of assumptions.
Way to look at it.
Yeah. And so the assumption needs to be at the last point, not the first point. And so, for the younger cohort, and we're talking 15 to even probably in your early 20s, yes, test things, because you're going to learn what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah,
but just,
correct.
Fail often and fail cheaply. Yeah, because, and I'm going to emphasize the point cheaply, because you don't want to ruin yourself at the start, because the compounding loss effect ruins you. It's like, I had Matt Scan on a couple of episodes before around, the first property you buy. And how, if you get that right, how much of a compounding effect that can have moving forward. You get it wrong. Massive difference. So you need to kind of learn what's right and what's wrong as early as possible. But you need to start. Like, I would say to someone like yourself, JK, it's really good that you just started.
Yeah.
You got into it and you understood it. Yeah. And you started to learn about it, because that got you interested in, like you said, into the pathway and understanding what's right and what's wrong. And obviously I know you're a firm believer about what's right, which kind of brings me on to this next stage. And it's the most common stage where people come to see us, which is around, like, they're usually in their 30s and 40s. And they have let's for all intents and purposes stuck in their ways. They've never gone to see someone to really kind of change their ways. They might have dabbled, a little bit of a Razer account here or a little bit of a spaceship account there or a this or a that and a couple of stocks here and there. But there's no real clear strategy. Yeah. It's around, I was listening to my cousin or my dad and he was interested, kind of similar to your story. Yeah. Dabble, life gets in the way, couple of kids, and then all of a sudden they find themselves in there where they are. Now, that's pretty normal. And usually what you'll find is that you often go to the thing that you are most comfortable with. Now, in Australia, that is usually property, okay? So it's very often that you'll see maybe a 30-year-old house, mortgage, couple of kids, investment property, and then a very, very small share portfolio. And so really what we're trying to do here is assess a little bit about their history, understand their mindset and their behaviors and their habits so that we can understand where they are now and why they're making their decisions. But also around, why isn't there a clear strategy? Why have they got to where they got? Now, in most cases, it's simply time and knowledge. Yeah. So if people are often very open and honest with us, which I'm thankful for, and they will often say we just don't have the time. We don't have the time to strategize for this. We've got other priorities in life. We need you guys to really create a clear strategy. So in that kind of group, we kind of have to strip everything that they've learnt up until that point, figure out what's really good, what they're really good at, and then what they're poor at doing, we need to kind of shift that away from them. So you might have someone that we're working with at the moment, which comes to mind, that he just often next hot stock he needs to jump on. And I could see it. And he was open and honest with me and said, John, I've lost a hell of a lot of money. I'm coming to you to really create the clear strategy because I can't keep on making these losses, because he's realized with the kids situation, the life that he wants, time is getting the better of him and he can't keep making these mistakes that maybe he could have when he didn't have these responsibilities. Yeah. So in the first probably instance there, and I would often say maybe for the first 2 years, and I was speaking to a client with one of our advisors yesterday, it's around creating the foundations for success. Yep. And if you think about what we're trying to build, which is financial freedom or your financial freedom house, the first thing we need to focus on is, one, what's the house want to look like? So we design it from a visionary perspective, but then what does the foundations look like? And the foundations often, JK, are both financial changes, but also there's this behavioral piece.
Correct, yeah.
The financial changes can happen very quickly in within weeks or months. The behavioral changes are another thing. So usually, JK, when we see someone like that and they've got this kind of sporadic stuff, really we're looking at from a financial point of view, and then we'll get to the behavioral stuff, is around structuring their assets the right way. So do you want to give a glimpse of what are we doing for these people?
Yeah. So it always, at the end of the day, it always goes back to the goals. Firstly, what are we trying to achieve? If there's, for example, like you mentioned, an investment property, that might be there. It's why'd you buy the investment property? And just getting an understanding of that, and not just why, because, for example, I want to build wealth. It's it's kind of why anyone buys an investment property. It's more around, I guess, that do you want to retire early? Is it something for your kids to have at some point later on where they can move into it? What's it actually for? And because then that also will dictate, for example, in that scenario, do we keep it? Do we sell it? What's the go there? So that's number one, is just really around understanding their goals. Then number two is, before we get into the investments, is then the structuring piece of it too. So is how we're going to own these. Is there maybe someone on a lower income? Is there someone on a higher income? And what's going to be the most tax effective way to do that? And then again, before we even get into what investments we're actually going to buy, it's what's the strategy going to be? How much are we going to start off with? How much are we going to be putting in on a regular basis? Is it something, for example, if they're self-employed, that we're doing lumps just to make sure their income's coming through? And what does that look like from there?
And this is totally centered to the goal. And the main goal being, I want to be financially free and sacrifice as little as possible, if not anything, on my life. Yeah, that's the kind of dream state that we want to be in. So structuring these to take away, tax that maybe you're paying unnecessarily, removing that, potential middlemen. Yeah. We want to kind of be removing those two. And then we know that then the third piece is around this kind of behavioral side. So it's really optimizing the finances tax efficiently, structured in line with the goals that we're trying to achieve, clear alignment, not vague alignment, clear alignment so that we have a purpose that sits behind it. And then that purpose that sits behind it creates this behavioral change. And so, we're working with a client yesterday and they want to buy a $1.2 million house next year. They're currently renting and they've gone from a scenario where they've had a house, sold the house, gone to renting, and they previously experienced the stress of owning maybe a mortgage that was beyond their needs. So we've started really small with these people, like really small. Like investing is like $100 a month. Yeah. Because yes, we want to get to the point where they're investing larger sums of money. They've, got this, but the reality is that their goals are dictating. They've got a short-term goal, which is what they need. They want this house, so we can't take a lot of money away from them. That is their number one goal in the short term. But two, we want to build these habits and behaviors. We want to make it so that they get into the routine. They get paid. They invest. They save. They pay off their debts. Then they fund their lifestyle. And so to change that behavior takes time. Yeah. So you got to think about it. There's some people that are apprehensive of change. Okay. But we need to say, you need to change if you really want this for yourself. So the really want this for yourself is around what JK was talking about, was aligning the goal to the strategy, and then like I was emphasizing, the purpose. So the first 2 years is really about change.
Correct. Yeah.
And so the expectations need to be like, I need to invest at least 2 years for the knowledge, the behaviors, the habits, and for ultimately for you to be transformed from incremental changes into who you need to become to get to that next stage.
Correct.
And if you can't master those things in the next 2 years, you're not ready to go to the next stage.
Yep.
And so, things like we do in regards to risk tolerance questionnaires, these questionnaires obviously assess tolerance towards risk, but really for us, we also use them as a financial literacy tool to understand how, financially literate they are in investing and stuff like this. And, so the first year, I would say the first 2 years in regards to those kind of 30s and 40s, even 50s, and 60s is around like just getting those, getting the finances fixed.
Yeah, but the habits.
But the habits and behaviors. And you're actually working on who you need to become to get to these more advanced strategies.
Yep.
And where I see people failing, if they do, is they just want the finances fixed but don't want to change the behaviors.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. I'm willing to go to the gym but not have the food to supplement.
Yep.
So yes, they will be slightly transformed, but they're not going to be at the level where they want to be.
Yeah.
And so, that was something that I needed to learn for myself, like coming from this kind of scarcity mindset, which was like, okay, well, if I do that, I will live okay, but I will have to sacrifice.
Yep.
I will have to not do what I want to do in my life. But for me to be able to kind of do what I need to do in my life, I really need to work on growing into that individual, into that person. And really as a couple, also having that complete alignment, where a lot of these 30s and 40s-year-olds, they've never had those alignment discussions. They've never talked about it. I was speaking to a client earlier this week around like they've never sat around the table talking around what they want for them and their family. They've got a couple of kids, to having those alignment and then really growing together, which is really amazing. I would say also not just for your finances, but for your relationship as well.
Correct.
So JK, obviously you've had long-term clients. They've adhered to the plan, not just on what they need to do every year, their super contributions, their protection, their wills, their this, their that. But they've also listened. They've been all ears. They've really heard about, sticking to a plan, not reacting in bad situations. You get to kind of year 3, and let's assume, they've done everything like that. What are you now looking for?
Yeah, so it's then at that stage, it's what do we need to do to go to the next level? because for most people, we're on the path of achieving what they want to achieve, especially if they've listened, they're doing all the right things, and life doesn't throw any spanners in the works. So then it's around then having a discussion with them to say, well, what if we can make these things happen quicker or sooner or bigger or better? What do we need to do? So then it's exploring things like, for example, there might be a discussion around what they can do to increase their income. For example, there's one we're working on at the moment, and he's been doing what he's doing for about 20 years, but he's been employed the whole time at the same employer, and has everything that he needs to do to start the business, to sort of get it off the ground. He's got leave, he's got everything. So he sort of said,
good cash reserves.
Good cash reserves, correct.
Listen to you, yeah.
Correct. So then it's around going, well, to increase your income, this is one of the things that we can at least test the waters on, just to see if it's a possibility and how well it works. But to change that mindset from when you've been getting paid the same way for 20 years to then going into something completely different, it's quite a big change to do. So it's just working with them around, well, this is why it's a lot, like, for us to test it. It's not going to be of detriment, all that sort of thing. So yeah, that's number one. The other one.
So JK, I've heard before, like, this isn't financial planning, JK, what you're doing. I think this is a very big difference in regards to why Thriving Wealth is a leader in the profession, is around working with them on the behaviours and the psychology that sits behind that decision, because you can mitigate a lot of risk by planning that correctly, but the cost-benefit analysis is going to be much, much bigger than the difference between one super fund and the other.
Oh, correct. Yeah, massive. Like, if this works, in this client, for example, like, their income is now, like, capped to a degree, but compared to what it was, it's a lot more uncapped in regards to their ability to earn an income, to the point where, like, if we've got an extra $100,000 of surplus cash flow that's coming through, like, imagine how many more years they're going to be able to retire early, or how many more family holidays they're going to be able to go on, and that sort of thing. So it's really around just workshopping with them and saying, well, this is the potential, and then this is what your life can look like. Do you want that or not? Because some clients also say to us, for example, we might have a discussion around a gearing strategy to say, well, look, you're on this trajectory. If we look at borrowing, for example, because now we're 2 years into investing, I know you guys have the right habits, we can look at doing this. There's actually some cases where clients say to us, nah, I'm happy with achieving this at this point in time. So we don't want to take on additional risk to do that. And that's also okay as well. But it's more around just making sure that they've had that discussion, we've thought about it, because if the potential's there, we at least want to say, well, you can potentially do this. Do you want to? Yes or no?
And do you think that the people that go into that kind of third, fourth, fifth, sixth year, in a way, they're kind of enjoying the journey, aren't they?
Yeah.
They've moved from wanting the destination to just enjoying the journey. It's like when you start hiking for the first time, and I remember when I first started hiking, like, I just want to get to the top of the summit. I want to get to the top of the summit. I want to get to the top of the summit. But actually, as you keep going, you're like, you just enjoy the scenery. You enjoy the walking. And, like, in a way, like, not that I could do it, but, like, you could feel like you could walk forever. Yeah. Like you could hike forever. Like, it's just because you're enjoying the journey on the way through. And I think that's the behavioral shift.
Yeah. And I think that also comes to when you start to see the progress, and you get more of a kick out of the progress, and you kind of not forget about the end result, but it's kind of like you get more fulfillment out of just seeing you improve.
And I think there's a bit of unrealistic expectation in regards to progress. And so, like, progress might be as simple in the first 2 years as just everything's not broken. You know what I mean? Everything's just not broken. Like, that's amazing progress. You've gone from chaos with no strategy to not broken. And that, I think, is really cool. Yeah. But I think that's a reflection on understanding that, like, my personal journey has been 20 years. You know what I mean? And really that next stage is around, like you said, like, do we accelerate? Do we bring those things forward? And there is some people that are saying no. Because with any acceleration becomes extra risk.
Correct.
There's always this risk element that comes in regards to bringing those things forward. And obviously we're working through mitigating those risks, okay? And from an advice perspective, we want, like, the minimum amount of risk for the maximum amount of return. That's the kind of way we want to kind of manage this. But yeah, I think where we see this kind of stage do really well is to really kind of execute on incremental shifts. For example, it might be as simple as, like, we really want to now start winding down the, how quickly we're paying off your debt to now really start accelerating what we're putting into investments. And there's a mindset shift there, because a lot of people are like, especially in the scarcity mindset, are like, I just want to pay my debt down. I want to pay my debt. And we love that. We love that they want to pay their debt down. But there's also, if the plan dictates it logically for you to invest more to bring those forward, well, then that's just an emotional decision that you're making. It's not a logical one. And obviously, there's obviously talks around debt recycling, business ventures, your ability to kind of advance in career, all of these things that accelerate the process. And we talk about, like, there's increasing risk, there's extra leveraging, and your ability to elevate your income is really kind of the moving parts that kind of accelerate that. And then there's obviously strategies that flow on out of that. But really as well too is now in this cohort as well too, and even in the first kind of 2-year kind of stage, getting that kind of bucketing strategy that we've previously talked about this podcast really nailed. Yeah. And when that is nailed properly, it's great, because the certainty of outcome increases exponentially. So what we're talking about, for people that haven't watched previous podcasts on this, is that we try to set up for our clients, or we do set up for our clients, kind of 3 distinct buckets. Okay, there's a safety bucket, an income bucket, and a growth bucket. And the safety bucket is money that you need kind of up to 3 years. Okay, you've got this income bucket, which is money that you need between kind of you don't need it in the next 3 years, but you might need it in the next 10. That kind of frame there. And we want to have these kind of income generating assets, and we want to be very tax efficient in those, especially when you're working. And then 10 plus years away is that kind of growth bucket, okay, which is things like shares and property. So you have that overlaid with now those kind of behavioral changes. I look at clients that have been with us for 10 plus years now. Wow, they're living amazing lives. I was talking about at the start of this podcast about seeing everyone in Europe. Like 98% of them are our clients. Like, I know that's not normal. And it's just so amazing that we've got the ability to kind of empower these people to have these type of lives. And, I people that know me very deeply, and I know with yourself, JK, they know that I jump out of bed and, I'm ready and roaring, and I want to see the next person and change their lives. And because I see it. I see people living out their dreams who stick with it. And, I say to people, like, especially working with us, if you're not thinking about doing it for 10 years, don't think about it for 10 seconds, because the fruits from the tree that you planted, yes, you'll start to see the little tree after 2 years, as we're talking about. 3 years, you'll start to see it get bigger. And, this is where after 10 years of doing it and nailing it, it's amazing. I shared, and I may have never shared it on this podcast, but it took me 14 years to become financially free, JK. 14 years of hard work. My work ethic, as you know, is full on. Like, I love what I do, and I pride myself on working hard and then working smart. I think that I work hard before I work smart, and then creating the right systems and having an advisor myself to make sure that I'm not making emotional decisions or making logical ones. But that was 14 years. After 14 years, you're now in this kind of, abundance level. And the abundance level is really around, like, what do I want to build for my children? What do I want to do for my parents who loved me and cared for me so much? Like, what kind of life do I want to give them? They're not going to be with us forever. And this trip that I've got later on in the year, I'm going to Egypt with my dad. That I remember when I was a young boy on the couch at home, and we were watching this, like, some version of the Discovery Channel or the History Channel, and we would be, talking about Tutankhamun, and we'd be talking about, like, I'm going to realize that dream that we talked about so many years ago with my father. How beautiful is that? And I'm going to be able to cherish that forever. And that's what we're talking about. Like, it's about the biggest, scariest thing, and our clients realize that, is getting to your deathbed and thinking, what could I have done? What could I have done? And it's not around, like, money helps. Whoever says it doesn't is talking rubbish. It does help, but it is not the be all and end all. Would I give up some of my wealth to have these memories? Yes, of course I would. You see, for those who follow me on social media, you see what I talk about with my children and whatnot. It's these memories are so important. And this is the next stage we're talking about. This beyond the advance is around, well, once you've got there, what's next?
Yeah. Yep.
What's next? What's the legacy you want to leave? What do you want to be remembered for? And sometimes it feels like a little bit of far away. But, are you willing to put in 10, 15 years to get it right?
Yeah.
And the longer you kick that down the road, the longer it's going to happen to being achieved if it doesn't happen. Time needs to be your best friend, not your worst enemy.
Yeah, yeah. And I think what's interesting about what you said too is you mentioned like 14 years of work to get to that stage where you're financially free. Like it took 14 years to get there, but if you stopped after 10, it's like you wouldn't have got there. Like you either get there or you don't.
Yep.
So you kind of like you have to accept that you don't know certainly when it's going to happen if you are putting in the hard work, but you've got to be prepared to do it for a long, long time.
JK, what's my pet hate word?
Laziness.
Okay. Because I know that when you put your mind to it, you can achieve a lot of things. And you knew that straight from, because I've drilled it into you about laziness. And it's around like, do you want a six pack? If you want, don't be lazy, go do it.
Go do it.
Go do it. Like the most successful people that I know are not lazy. They're not lazy. This whole culture around being lazy and just having this passive income. Like Gary Vee says that he hates the word passive income. Yeah. And it's around like, I think I do too.
Yeah.
Like your active income, your ability to kind of earn money and build wealth is very, very important. And I think the biggest thing in this whole thing, and I want to make this very clear, is it's also around this knowledge investment.
Yep.
This who you need to become is around knowledge.
Yeah.
And so you need to associate with people that know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like not guessing what they're doing, knowing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And if we're speaking to someone who's getting their investment advice from their dad, great. I know your dad loves you, awesome, but your dad's probably not the right person because your dad's a plumber.
Yep.
Get him to come and do my plumbing, awesome.
Yep.
He's going to know it more than I do.
Yeah, yep.
So surrounding yourself with people that are qualified to take you to that next level on who you need to become is absolutely crucial, regardless of if it's financial advice or if it's something else, is a key thing. And invest in knowledge. Invest in knowledge. And as a parent, like it is so important what we do for our children. Every time I'm at a barbecue or at a lunch or whatever, the topic always comes around like, oh, John, what you teach should be in schools. It is so hard to get what we teach into schools. Like it's just, I have emailed, I've contacted, I've tried it. It's like this wall of trying to get what we're teaching into schools. And because that's a real infancy stage of these kind of life stages. But the reality is I've chose that I can't wait. And so my kids' journey is around like when money is not really accessible for them, is around teaching them about knowledge. But that is not even at like that young age of my children. You grew into who you became because I spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of teaching you. And so obviously you've grown, you've done your own self-teaching. Everyone in this practice obviously does it as well too. Their self-teaching is very, very important. But around growing into who you need to become. And an element of that, I believe, is the elevation of income, which people are scared to do in these advanced strategies. And what I mean by that is around this. Let's say you're earning $100,000 a year. Who do you need to become and what do you need to do to earn $200,000 a year? Yeah. Like you need to map that out. No one's going to come and just say, here's an extra $100,000. You need to add value. So for me to get paid more, I need to add more value. So I understood that very early on in my career that I needed to add value. So I went into what are the things that I can do to control my income growth, and it is to become mega valuable. Yeah. And I understood that, and then obviously, my story is my story, but I kind of think about it like this way. I've got 40,000 plus hours in regards to financial advice. You've got two choices as a consumer, or a client to do. You can do those 40,000 hours, or you can pay me for it. And then how much are you willing to pay me for all of that knowledge and that expertise, and then the impact and the value that that's going to have to that individual. Now, as you can see, my value then increases because I am obsessed with learning about these things. Now, obviously, I'm using myself as an example, but goes the same when I had my tooth stuff with my oral surgeon. Mate, he had like 3 different PhDs. He's a professor at whatever. He came in, and all done, and 3 other people couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I saw the difference between going to a dentist, for example, that just started out, to a guy who had that expertise, early invested in that value. And I saw the distinct difference between levels.
Yeah.
And the most wealthiest clients that we work with, they really focus on that. They really focus on either investing themselves in that knowledge in their own career, and then the areas of not their expertise and not their knowledge, they then outsource.
Yeah. Yep.
And so you go through this trajectory in life, which is at the start, learning, testing. Next stage, you shouldn't stop learning. You know, another irritation that I have, JK, and I've told you this before, and for everyone, is around like, oh, I don't need to learn that because I've already mastered it.
Yeah.
What are we talking about here? You should always be learning. Yeah. Always trying to learn as well too. So you need to embed this a learning addiction as quickly as possible. Trust me, there's much more things to get addicted to than learning. Yeah. So become an addicted learner. Yeah. And so then when you're optimizing your finances along the way, the most successful clients that go through this kind of journey, they look at like their finances, and what I'm talking about, like their super contributions, their investments, their whatever, as long as they're sorted, what's the next thing we need to work on? And the next thing they understand is, okay, what can I outsource to you that is not my specialty? And what do you need from me to make this happen? And that reflection is critical because that's the game changer between the top 2% and the rest of the 98%, don't you think?
Yep. Yeah. Massive. And I think the other thing is too, like even when we were talking about passive income before and how Gary Vee like hates the word, for example, one of the other ones that I heard recently was around like, you go ask all these wealthy people, like what are they doing at the moment? Where's the best place to invest? They'll tell you what they're doing now, not what they were doing to get there, if that makes sense. Because similar to like building wealth, accumulating wealth is a completely different strategy to then living off that wealth passively. And getting there versus staying there, 2 different habits and behaviors.
And that's it. And Jacob, that's why I built Thriving Wealth, was because I realized there was an opportunity in the financial advice industry to not just manage people's money, but to also build their money and build their wealth and then create the fulfillment that I didn't want to just create people that are building wealth for the sake of building wealth. I wanted wealth with purpose. I wanted them to not have that regret later in life to say, yeah, I've got millions and millions of dollars, but I'm not living a fulfilled life. And so that takes stages. And so, yes, we are not for everyone. As you can see, there's people that don't want to change. There's people that just want things sorted out. But for the people that commit and commit for the long term, amazing. Amazing. And it far exceed any plan that we originally put in. Like sometimes I'll go back and I'll look back at like plans that I did, 2011, 2012, 13, and like see where they are now. And it's really amazing. Like how many lives have been changed. And, I even got another text message today, which I'm very humbled that I get them very regularly around like, I can't stop raving about you guys and I can't stop talking about you guys. Like I wish everyone would just take the step. And like this podcast is a way for, each and every one of you to really understand what really matters. And what really matters is living an amazing life. And people can try and sell you the investment property that's going to change your life and the crypto thing that's going to change your life or the stock that's going to change your life. But if you're looking at everything else to change your life and you're not willing to change who you are, that's fundamentally not what's gonna not gonna change you. And this does not come from philosophies in financial advice. This is around life philosophies. You look at some of the best philosophers of history, and they will tell you that you need to look within first of who you need to become. And if you want that epic life, well, who do you need to change? Yeah, if you want to become a better parent, stop looking sometimes at the kid. Look at you first on who I need to become as a better parent, and then how do I reflect the child? And if I want to be getting better with my health, don't blame the fast food outlets that are everywhere. What can you do to change who you are? And if you ultimately want to change, how much effort comes beyond that? And that's why we talk about the first 2 years being so foundational, fixing, setting foundations, and then how that accelerated journey happens from both, yes, financial strategies, but also their mindset on who they need to become. And when that change happens to going from I'm trying to be fit to I am fit, wow.
Yep. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. It's an identity shift. It really is. It's an identity shift of I want to feel like I'm going forward to I am going forward to I am free.
Yeah.
And then probably the last one is what do I want to be remembered for? And those 4 different identity shifts, once you can shift into those different, your just way of viewing the world changes.
Yeah. And in each of those sort of stages too, the interesting thing is sometimes we kind of got to like unwind some habits as well. So for example, especially when you move to the point of, to that point of being financially free, for example, like insurance is a big one. We spoke about risk mitigation, where it's like this whole time we've been carrying on about protecting the risk, protecting the downside, make sure we're insured, And then all of a sudden you're coming to them saying, well, now we're going to cancel all these insurances because you don't need them anymore. And then it's like, you've kind of got to then go through that behavioral change again. Well, it's like, well, this is why we don't need it now. Or, we've got another one that we're working on at the moment, and they've been investing, but they've had some changes now where there's less income. And it's like, they want to be investing. And I've had to, like, this was someone who, had to try, like, really push them to invest. Now I've got to try really hard to stop them from investing just because their habits change so much. But the habit that they have now, that got them to where they are now, is not the right habit that they need to go from, like, now to the sort of next stage.
Yeah, 100%. There's always those shifts. And I think that's why, like, financial advice without behavioral coaching is not worth it.
Yeah.
I agree. In my opinion. And it's something that I've really pushed. I've really seen an adoption in the profession now after years of preaching about it. But like, if you don't know how to help people grow onto who they need to become, is the opportunity really being explored in the right way, and is the change really happening there? And it's really proud to see obviously you grow and to be able to kind of see what we're doing here, and for the viewers and listeners that I know that reach out to me and please do, because it does mean a lot to me that you're learning so much about this. That's really what it feels absolutely amazing. So if you are enjoying these, please make sure you like and subscribe on all the major channels and share them to everyone you can. Let's get this message out as much as possible. But JK, thank you very much for jumping on, and for everyone listening, thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Cheers.